Welcome to another How to Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, Director of Community Engagement at Sandler. And this week, we are talking about how to succeed at designing your 30-second commercial. The following podcast is copyrighted by Sandler Systems, Inc. and protected by U.S. copyright laws. Sandler is the worldwide leader in sales, management, and customer service training. You can find more information at sandler.com. And my guest this week is Brad Ferguson, a longtime Sandler trainer, about 28 years. And he's from Scottsdale, Arizona, and he's going to tell us about how to succeed at designing your 30-second commercial. Brad, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a little bit about the 30-second commercial here. What are we talking about today, and who should be paying attention?
The way that salespeople can identify who their ideal targets are to become their own marketing piece to attract the right kind of people to them by defining the conditions, the symptoms that are occurring in their prospects, which would require them to need the salesperson's services.
Well, I love that. I think you hit on one thing right off the bat there, which is defining the problem. A lot of people think about commercials as advertising their services or like a resume, and they try and make themselves sound great. And they want to impress people with all the cool things that they're doing, and they're not necessarily paying attention to the customer. So I think that's attitude number one. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how do we get our head right when we're delivering a 30-second commercial? I know some people are scared of it. I know some people, do it wrong. They do it in wrong times and wrong places. Where would you start in recommending we get our head right for this?
What do you believe you bring to the marketplace? Number one. Number two, what is it different about you than a choice that somebody else would have for a similar service or product that you offer?
Yeah, I like that, especially the belief and the confidence in what you have. I think a lot of people that screw up their 30-second commercial do it because they're not doing it in sincerity of wanting to help somebody else and seeing it as malpractice. If I don't tell somebody about something that could save them money, save their business, save their life, I'm doing them a disservice, right? I need to have this attitude that it is my job in whatever role I have in the organization to be able to talk about the organization in a way that helps other people solve their problems and helps us grow our business. Is that fair?
I think that's right on. I believe that the salesperson has to almost insert themselves into the prospect's role, become that character. Now, what does that character need? What does the prospect require of the salesperson? It's not necessarily first what the salesperson has to offer. It's what do I need taken care of on my end? We can bring that solution secondary. And I find that happens so many times with emails or phone calls from people marketing, business development, people making that first phone call. They all want to talk about their solutions. And it runs the thing backwards. What comes first, a problem or a solution?
Well, your problem, right?
Exactly. A solution without a problem becomes an event. And it's answers with, so what? Doesn't resonate with me. Glad that you got the best and the fastest and the greatest out there. Doesn't mean I need it.
Yeah, and I think that's a common myth or misconception. You've been doing this for almost 30 years here with Sandler. I'm sure you've seen it a bunch. I think people miss that order for sure. The other thing that they miss is a 30-second commercial isn't necessarily just something you record to put on YouTube or television or the radio. This is something that's delivered in email. It could be a LinkedIn message. It could be a networking event and somebody says, hey, what do you do? Or you could be out with the family at your kids' sporting event and somebody next to you says, what do you do for a living? You should have a concise way to explain that resonates with those problems that you solve to help pull people into a conversation. It's not meant to be a package delivery of everything you need to pitch that like they're going to ask for the sale at the end of this 30 seconds. Is that fair? How would you explain that this prep and what we're really trying to use a 30-second commercial for?
You want to be able to differentiate yourself, but it's the message that draws people or attracts people to say, hey, that's me. I use this consistently when I'm training and coaching people. I think one of the finest examples of what could be a 30-second commercial is NyQuil, the cough and flu medicine. It demonstrates an elevator pitch that hits this right on the head. It says on the label, headache, fever, sore throat, nasal congestion, sinus pressure, runny nose, cough. And what are you going to say when you read it if you got that trouble? That's me. How did they know? It's exactly what's going on with me. I guess I need this. Did not talk about acetaminophen and everything else that can take care of congestion. It wasn't about the chemical ingredients.
I love that. And to me, it sets us right up for being a modern consultative seller. 100 years ago, pitching snake oil and making something sound great, people might have bought into it and done that. We're not really in that world anymore. We want people to, like you say, raise their hand and opt into the process and say, that's me. Tell me more about how you can help me, and start this conversation. It's meant to really not make the sale, but start a conversation about whether there would be a good fit here in most cases. But as we transition to behavior here, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the different types of 30-second commercials and how they're different. How can we do the right thing at the right time and use the right maybe structure of our 30-second commercial before we worry about what these words are?
When people are describing what it is they do with their business or what their role is, if there's a 30-second commercial, there's a brand promise, and there's also a value proposition. A brand promise is a statement that a business writes to describe the value they deliver to their customers, to their clients. It's a statement that can be a component of their branding strategy, so it creates their public image. We look at a value proposition. That tells their ideal client the top reason or reasons why a product or service is best suited for that particular end user. It should be persuasive enough, I think, that that prospect wants to become a paying customer of their company or of that business. Where a 30-second commercial or an elevator pitch is used to tell potential clients or customers about the problems that you solve or the positive results people get from engaging and doing business with you. It's not about the business's deliverables. It's about the symptoms that exist in the client prior to engaging with the salesperson.
I think that's great. And we're going to talk here in a second about the structure of the 30-second commercial. And we've already given a few hints about what order these things go in. I do think a unique selling proposition, like you said, the differentiator, your brand promise about how you're better or different than other people is important. We want to get that in there. It's just not the most important until we figure out what problems they solve, or if they even have a problem that we can solve with that brand promise. So that to me is a huge message. And I think sometimes here we also mess up the difference between sales and marketing. So I've hinted at it a few times, but if you're putting stuff on your website, you also kind of want to do the same thing. You need a mix of problems you solve, we call them pains, and the features and benefits of the good, ideal outcome, because it's the distance between those two things that creates the motivation to change or buy, right? There's a gap there. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe how we balance these, or in your opinion, which one holds more weight there, the pains and the problems, or the benefits and the gains when we're doing a 30-second commercial?
Remember the time frame that we're working in. We've probably just engaged or just met somebody for the first time. The problem has got to precede the solution. So initially, does this person have anything that I can benefit from, or from the sales perspective, do I have something that will help them? The only way to do so is by identifying with what's happening in that prospect's world right now. Like the NyQuil, that's me. I've got that kind of trouble. That's the stuff how did you know? Were you sitting in last Friday's meeting? That's exactly what we all talked about. And automatically the connection is there. They don't need to know what the solution is going to be initially. The fact that you understand, you get it. When David Sandler was alive, he had a nice rule we all use when we talk about bonding and rapport. An old Indian expression, you are my friend when you walk in my moccasins, which simply interpreted means the prospect feels that I feel how they feel. They get it. There's a connection. Now that they understand me, now we can engage in a conversation. People want to be heard and they want to be understood. If the salesperson's doing all the talking, how are they going to understand what's happening in the prospect's world? 30-second commercial tees the prospect up to want to engage with you. I think that may be a way to state it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You really made me see it in a new light, even for me, 12 years in here at Sandler, is that the 30-second commercial is not designed to sell our product or service. What we're trying to get them to buy is another 2 to 20 minutes of our time. Is the rest of this conversation going to be interesting enough that I should stay in it? So whether that's in a phone call or you're at a networking event or you're even in a Zoom meeting and you've set it up for 30 minutes, we got to sell in the first 2 minutes. What are the problems we're going to solve? How am I going to make your life better? Where is this connection so that the next 30 minutes are going to be interesting for you? If we don't do that, the rest of it doesn't matter.
It comes down to those letters, ROI, return on investment. Is this going to be worth my time?
So let's get into it now and design it here, Brad. I want to make sure we get to technique and talk about what this actually sounds like. The big mistake I see people make also is they worry too much about what the words are in their 30-second commercial, and then they sound like a robot reading it. So maybe before, and I'll let you go ahead and talk about the structure and technique, but I wanted to make sure you also hit on why we're doing it and how we deliver it, because I think that is equal a difference here.
I think you're exactly right. Before we leave the behavior thing, which is part of success with Sandler, attitude, behavior, technique, I find it strange that enough salespeople are not out there shopping their competition. They don't know what else is being said out there. So how can you perceive things from your prospect's point of view if you don't see what's on the other side of that fence? There's nothing wrong with shopping your competition. Be aware.
Well, it's an interesting point, because you have to interview your clients to know what their problems are. You should know more about them and their business than they do, so you can tell their story better than they can. But in order to differentiate yourself in this 30-second commercial, you have to know what your competitors are doing too. That's great.
So in building this 30-second, go ahead.
Tell us about the 30-second commercial.
In building this, I take my clients through a format that's familiar to them, and it starts out with, what do you sell? What are your deliverables that you provide? So I put it in our training business. It may be Sandler does provide a systematic approach to engaging a prospect in the sales process. We provide a way to gain commitments and outcomes after every sales call, even if it's a no. And there's a proper way and a time to address money issues instead of them becoming an objection later on. And so those would be 3 things that I address. I always use the number 3. We've been engaged with the number 3 since we were able to speak. The world is revolving around groups of 3: A, B, C, do, re, mi, X, Y, Z, slow, medium, fast, easy as 1, 2, 3. If you change out of that, there's a little bit of an interrupt. It's not a good one that makes the prospect start thinking. And when they're thinking, they're not listening. And I want this to flow with them. So identify what it is you sell. Number 2, what's happening in your prospect's world that would make them a candidate for what you sell? So if I stay in line with the 3 things we just talked about, number 1, every sales call today ends in a different manner, making it difficult to duplicate success. Too often, a good sales appointment ends with a think it over, and I got stuck doing unpaid consulting and it went no place. Third one, every time the salesperson's asked how much, They never sell without discounting. That's what's happening in the prospects world. So now we look at the third step. How do those issues with the prospect impact their world? And ideally, they would begin with an emotional word. And I'll caution people, too much negativity, what was me, sounds a little bit like drama. So be a little cautious in how you deliver that. So if I stayed with, again, these same three topics, right now, my prospect is frustrated that they're unable to consistently follow a sales process. Second one would be they hate it when good sales calls end with prospects don't want to think about it. Or the third thing is they wish they could maintain fair margins and keep their business profitable and not have to discount. Fourth step, who is your ideal prospect that you want to talk to? Presidents and owners of mid-sized construction companies. Let's just say that. So now I put that whole thing together. I take that fourth step, who we work with presidents and owners of mid-sized construction companies who are frustrated that they're unable to consistently follow a sales process. They hate it when good sales calls end with prospects who still want to think about it. And they wish they could maintain fair margins to keep their business profitable. And now the piece comes in that actually, we use the word often, hooks it. I'm going to tell the prospect that they don't need me. I know it's contradictory to what some people want to do, but after listing those things, I say to that prospect, since we've never worked together, my guess is you've already found ways to keep those from happening to you. I just stop. And in almost every instance, oh, no, we're not. Really, which one? And now we start the Sandler selling process of taking a pain indicator and converting it into true pain.
Yeah, and we have lots of other podcasts on that. So if you want to search pain in our backlog of over 500 episodes, you can learn more about the pain funnel and how you continue the conversation. But I want to keep this focused here on how we start it, because we have a new course coming out with HubSpot on starting interesting sales conversations. And you can download a free copy of our 30-second commercial creator that Brad just walked you through there as well. So reach out to your local Sandler trainer, ask about that, or check out our resources at sandler.com. I thought you did an amazing job of it explaining that and what we're doing. The part I wanted to highlight was the end, because for me, it makes natural sense. Who are we looking to meet? Who's our ideal client? What are the problems that they have, and maybe how we solve them better or differently than other people? But then that qualifying question is different. A lot of people are trained to do that assumptive close, that you're probably experiencing these things, aren't you? But think about what that would say if you go, especially us as sales trainers, right? And go, hey, Brad, I'm sure you're not selling anything and you need a sales trainer. I'm insulting you right off the bat. But it's the same thing if you're in a warehouse and I'm solving production issues or something. Hey, Brad, I'm sure you stink at your job. Let me tell you how I can help you. But when you flip that around and the way you did it, which is, I'm sure you've been at this a long time, you've already got those problems solved, or you have some sort of fix in place. How are those working for you? Or is there anything interesting here for us to talk about? That allows them to say, you know what, we have done a lot of work on this, but I'm not happy with the results. And it kind of allows them to opt in without being offended or insulted or pushed away. Can you talk a little bit more about the power of that negative question at the end?
One of the rules we follow with in Sandler, when you deny someone their position, they will defend it for you. As you know, family's a fairly strong horse racing fan. We like the races. You know some of the people. Mike Smith, the jockey, is my daughter's godfather. So years ago, we were at Del Mar, and Mike rode a winner of a horse, and we had just met Mike recently. We didn't have the connection. And my daughter says at age 6, I want to go to the winner's circle. Wait a minute. Only special people, owners, the trainers, those with connections get to be in the winner's circle. It's just not something you do. And we're by the fence, and we're watching the people head to the winner's circle, and Jill Baffert, Bob's wife, spoke to Sophia just to say hello. And I said, walk up to Jill and tell her you've never been in the winner's circle. She walked up to Jill and said, I've never been in the winner's circle. I said, Sophia, you can't say that. People like us never get to go in the winner's circle. It's only reserved for special people. And Jill said, the heck with that. She can stand right with us.
Yeah, I think that is the interesting part of the reverse psychology, but it's also not just using it to trick people. It's taking a position that you didn't even ask. So you weren't being pushy here. It's a part of being a consultative seller, and a modern seller is respecting the other person's position, giving them a chance to opt in and help you and rescue you and solve it. And I think most importantly, I think people miss that the old way is actually the pushy way. That when you're presumptive, when you're assuming they want to talk to you, that they have time, that what you have is better than what you're currently doing, it really just kind of sounds arrogant. But there's this way of asking that hook question at the end that shows you're credible, they're credible, we're both adults. Do we want to continue an interesting conversation as adults or not?
It creates equal business stature. We're on an equal level. We're not so much better than them that we're telling them they need us. We're also not falling into a position of weakness where we've got doubt in ourselves, which permeates the prospect saying, well, I wanted to work with somebody. I need somebody a little bit stronger than that.
I love that. Huge lessons today. We'll wrap those up here in a second. But first, I want to get to know a little bit more about you, Brad. We've mentioned 28 years at Sandler. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. Brad Ferguson, at this point in your career, after 28 years, how do you define success?
Watching, experiencing, hearing about the successes that my clients are experiencing, new goals they've set, vacations they've gone on, purchases they've made, relationships that have grown. We do a goals workshop twice a year that's large. There's usually 40 to 50 people involved. And when people build, they're cut and paste this poster board of all the things they want to have happen in the next year, and then watch those come true. That's where Brad gets his jollies. The successes from other people achieving new heights, accomplishing things, earning, acquiring that they haven't had before.
I love that. Great answer. Now, was there a biggest lesson learned, hurdle you had to get over, or, failure you're most proud of from your career?
There's so many of them. It's just go do it. We teach people, keep your eyes out of the rearview mirror. What used to happen was happened in the past. You can't change anyway. If you want what's behind you to be successful, then do what you need to do today, and don't be afraid to make it happen. There's nothing worse than, I think they call it, regret is a lot stronger than fear. The feeling of regret is probably 5 times greater than the fear that exists before you do something, is when the fact that you didn't do it and wish you had, that stays with you forever. I can deal with fear in seconds. Regret hangs around a long time.
Now, this is a big one for somebody that's been around as long as you have. What is your favorite Sandler rule, concept, lesson?
This came from David's mouth himself when he was alive. And since my business opened, I had a yellow sticky on my phone. Always remember to ask ... So what happens next? Both parties know exactly what's expected. When I'm debriefing my clients, I'll ask them, so what's the agreement for what's supposed to happen for the two of you? They'll tell me, followed by, if I call your prospect and ask them, what is the mutually agreed to happen next? Are they going to say the exact same thing? If they are, we're on the same page. If they don't say the same thing, we don't have that clear future of what's supposed to happen next.
Hey, I love that. And it's a great way to wrap up this conversation on designing your 30-second commercial, because should you get somebody that says, hey, we have those problems, that's a great question to start with. So what should happen next? Should we talk about it now? Do you want to set another meeting? Do you want to get other people involved? A great way to keep making sure your sale is moving forward. All right, Brad, let's wrap it up for everybody and sum this up here. Based on how to succeed at designing your 30-second commercial, what is one attitude you'd like people to have?
Believe that you are able to master the skills that you bring to market. If you're not, get better at it. Make yourself the obvious choice for that client.
Oh, that's a good one. And one key behavior or thing you would like people to do?
Block out time. Almost on a daily basis, I'll go 4 out of 5 days, that you're going to do something that is designed to bring in new business for your company.
I love that. Even just counting how many times you get to deliver your 30-second commercial to somebody that hasn't heard it before is a great thing to track. And finally, the best technique, tool, or hack to use.
Make sure that this 30-second commercial is designed around symptoms, not the salesperson's deliverables. Get away from the we do speech that so many people have to give at a networking event.
I love it. Thanks again, Brad Ferguson, Sandler trainer from Scottsdale, Arizona. For more information on Sandler, you can reach out to a local training office. You can find those at sandler.com, or our enterprise team. If you have more than one location and you need help figuring that out, we can help you there as well. Don't forget to send this podcast to somebody that you think needs to hear it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, wherever you're listening to this one right now. And remember, whatever you are, be a good one. The How to Succeed podcast is brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales, management, and customer service training with over 250 locations. More information at sandler.com. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe to get notified about future sales and leadership videos from Sandler.
The Sandler Summit returns in 2023. Each new event builds exponentially upon the energy and success of the prior year. The 2022 Sandler Summit event was a huge success for everyone who attended, so don't miss the next one. Buy your tickets to the Sandler Summit at sandler.com/summit.